I've lost count of how many sunrises I've seen since I arrived on this island. Hundreds, I'd imagine, yet each one seems more beautiful than the last. Sometimes I like to take Athena out just before dawn and watch it while flying through the morning sky. It's in these simple moments that I realize just how lucky I am. Not that I was unhappy exploring the reefs and rainforests back in Oz, but I wasn't ever going to spot a Bronto stomping about the outback, was I? Since I got here, I've had the opportunity to study creatures that no other biologist has even witnessed. I'll always be grateful for that. I'd been holding out for a change in weather before studying the wildlife of this island's peculiar tundra region, but I think it's safe to say that it's not forthcoming. Clearly this planet has no axial tilt, and therefore no seasons. That ice and snow isn't melting anytime soon. Can't say I'm happy about it. The cold and I are not the best of mates, I can tell you that. But I'll just have to suck it up. The climate during the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods that many of this island's creatures hail from was fairly uniform, so an Arctic region is quite the oddity. It'd be plain stubborn of me not to have a Captain Cook. The tribe that calls themselves the Howling Wolves has really made this northern adventure a lot easier. Well, them and Athena. She's right at home here. I don't think I'll ever be able to repay Rockwell for just up and giving me an Argentavis. He said our conversations are payment enough, but I still feel guilty. I should remember to collect some floral samples for him while I'm here. Anyway, tagging along with the wolves has been a good introduction to the region, but I think I'm ready to make my own way. To make real scientific conclusions, I need to observe these animals undisturbed in their natural habitat for long periods of time. What a day! There I am, putting the finishing touches on the mammoth dossier, when all of a sudden a Tyrannosaurus starts attacking the herd. Struth, a Tyrannosaurus wading through the bloody snow! I asked the Howling Wolves at the nearest camp, and apparently this is a common thing. They're not new to the region. It just doesn't make sense. How can a Tyrannosaurus survive in this climate? And how can the introduction of an apex predator not shift the entire ecosystem? Well, I've combed through more carnivore droppings than I care to calculate, and I can't say they provided many answers. All the predators in this region have very similar diets. With so many different predators hunting the same prey, the populations of all these species shouldn't be sustainable. Yet, I've found nothing to indicate that any population shift is actually happening. It's just bizarre. The longer I'm here, the more I realize that this region shouldn't exist. Its climate is out of sync with the rest of the island. Many of the creatures here are millions of years ahead of the dinosaurs, and the ecosystem is almost static. Something's off. I need to review my notes. Helena, you're a dipstick. Going through my notes, I've realized that there are more predators than prey across this entire island by almost double. That's the opposite of how any ecosystem is supposed to work. I can't believe it took a Tyrannosaurus frolicking through the snow for me to see this. It's plain as day. What to make of it? Add in the human factor, and it's impossible for this island to continue as it is by natural means. So, what? Is this island's wildlife being monitored and curated somehow? I should speak with Rockwell. Maybe he's come to a similar conclusion. I never thought this island was normal exactly. I mean, there are giant obelisks floating in the sky, for Pete's sake. Not to mention that cave I found, which hid a platform similar to those found at the base of said obelisks. Well, similar except for those oddly shaped holes that were carved into its podium. I guess I just didn't care about all that. So long as I had my beautiful, unique, and untainted ecosystem to study, I was happy. But now... No, I shouldn't write it off just yet. Not before I arrive at Rockwell's. There's still a chance that my data is off, or that I missed something obvious. I won't give up on my paradise just yet. I really need to visit Rockwell more. It's so energizing to be around someone of his experience that still has so much excitement for his work, and talking to him always helps me gain perspective. As for the island's ecological abnormalities, Rockwell reassured me that I was jumping to conclusions. He made a great point. Just because this place doesn't follow the scientific laws we're used to, doesn't mean it follows no scientific laws at all. After all, science is about discovery, and new discoveries can invalidate old principles. So before I latch onto my theory, I need to gather more empirical evidence. Otherwise, I'm no scientist. On Rockwell's recommendation, I've headed south to start an in-depth study of the island's marine life with the help of a tribe called the Painted Sharks. Because the ecosystem of the ocean that surrounds the island is separate from the ecosystem on the mainland, correlating patterns between them might help me isolate and understand this island's scientific abnormalities. Also, after freezing my ass off for so long, I could really use an extended stay on a tropical island. Marine biology was never my strongest field, but I do love the ocean. If nothing else, it should be beautiful there. The Painted Sharks have treated me like I'm the bloody queen since I showed them Rockwell's letter of recommendation. I don't think I've eaten better in my entire time on the island. Not that it's a high bar, I'm a horrible cook. Oh, and they've been of tremendous help with my research, of course. So far, my estimates of the predator-prey balance are consistent with the ecosystems on the mainland. The water is simply teeming with shoals of megalodons, and they are extremely aggressive. Perhaps that's a side effect of having limited prey. Sharks aren't known as territorial creatures. I'll have to study them further. Still no answers as to why the megalodons are so territorial, but I was privy to something even more extraordinary. Megalodon mating behavior. No one's ever witnessed great whites rooting around back home, so that alone is monumental, but I've got something even better. I know, what could possibly top watching megalodons having a naughty, right? Tracking the female. I was able to observe her for almost the full gestation period, and get this, it only lasts 1 week. 1 week! No wonder the population is so high. These are spitting out pups 44 times the rate of Aussie great whites. I should compare how they behave in captivity. So in addition to all the oddities I found with the wild megalodons, here's the real cherry on top. Taming them is a piece of piss. A bit of training and they're more obedient than the family dog. Now, I've heard of sharks getting very rudimentary training over a year or so, but not to this extent. Certainly not so easily. Sharks aren't mammals or even avians. They're fish. They rely more on instinct, or, to put it simply, they're not very smart. You shouldn't be able to ride one like a jet ski. I'm trying to keep an open mind like Rockwell suggested, but this just feels wrong. Well, this seals it. Just when I thought I'd made some sense of the notes I took while visiting the Painted Sharks, I spotted the nail in the proverbial coffin. Roos. A whole herd of giant roos were just hopping about the countryside like they'd always been there. As much as I love roos, they just shouldn't be here. Period. They evolved in Oz and Oz only, 60 million years after the dinosaurs went extinct among a bevy of other marsupials. If I know any genus, it's this one, and Procoptodon should not exist here. This island isn't an ecosystem. It's a zoo. Not too long ago, I thought this place was a far-off utopia where I could study all the world's lost wonders. Now I'm certain it's not natural at all. I have to say, it's lost a lot of luster. Interference from mankind hasn't helped. Most tribes have learned to live in harmony with their slice of the island, but some aren't content with that. One is even trying to conquer all the others, and natural or not, this ecosystem won't be any better off if it's burned down in some great war. The sunrises are still beautiful, though. At least nothing can change that. Of all the abnormalities that I've observed, the tame megalodons stick out to me. It was almost like they were stray dogs who were re-socialized, as though they had a genetic history of human obedience. Most of my observations have been in the wild, but I think I may learn a thing or two if I observe domesticated creatures more closely. I need to study their diets, their mating patterns, how they socialize with other species, all that. Rumor has it that there's some woman who's tamed a whole mess of them by herself. So many that they call her the Beast Queen of the Jungle. Maybe she'll have some useful insights. I suppose it was a bit naive of me to think that someone with the moniker of Beast Queen would roll out the red carpet. I guess I got used to all the friendly treatment that being an associate of Rockwell's earned me. She did let me stay at least, and she hasn't instructed her dinosaurs to kill me yet, so that's a positive. Not that she'd really need the dinosaurs. If that glare of hers gets any more intense, I'll probably just burst into flames on the spot. Struth, I hope she eases up. Sifting through raptor excrement with someone watching is harder than you might think. There's nothing special about the diet of these tamed creatures when compared to their wild counterparts. Part of that is the Beast Queen's doing, as she takes them on regular hunting excursions for training purposes. Curiously, they never have to range too far. There's an abundance of prey nearby, despite the size of her pack. That this is held true regardless of her domesticated creature's remarkable birth and growth rates makes it even more unusual. Oh, and I did finally get her name. Mei-Yin. She's gotten a little less glary, too. In hindsight, maybe starting by studying her animal's feces just gave her the wrong impression. The most interesting thing that I've observed about Mei-Ying's animals has been what they don't do. They never fight. Among creatures that have been domesticated for generations, like cats or dogs, that's normal, but there's a reason zoos keep their animals in separate enclosures. Certain instincts are hard to curb, and there should definitely be more disputes among such a diverse group. Mei-Yin has even integrated a herd of herbivores into her army, as their thick hides have proven resistant to fire and explosives. Yet, despite being surrounded by carnivores, they remain untouched. It doesn't make sense. That's not to take anything away from Mei-Yin. She works hard to treat and train her animals well. She's not bad company either, at least when she's not mute and I don't go full biologist. Sometimes it's felt like speaking a new language, but it's been kind of refreshing. After going over my notes from Mei-Yin's camp, I've concluded that the animals on this island are not only used to humans, but used to captivity. Even with their accelerated growth rates, their behavior indicates that they have been regularly domesticated for decades at least. Otherwise, they'd never obey the whims of mankind so easily. With that in mind, I believe that my theory about this island being curated is back in play. In fact, it's possible that not only are animal populations being controlled, but that the animals themselves are genetically modified. However, before I bring this to Rockwell, there's one more rumor that I want to confirm. This is the smoking gun. It has to be. I simply can't be convinced that this place is natural after finding an island populated entirely by carnivores. Even if they fed off each other, which is awfully dubious given that carnivore meat is much more likely to carry harmful parasites than herbivore meat, the landmass is so small and their population is so dense that they could never maintain it. Yet there it is, hidden away off the northeast coast of the island. Someone would have to put them there on purpose. There's no way that Rockwell can deny my theory now. As I expected, Rockwell couldn't deny my theory, but I can't say that I have his endorsement either. He didn't seem terribly engrossed in the subject, frankly. Something else seems to have captured his attention as of late: the island's obelisks. Apparently, Rockwell stumbled upon a way to interact with the towering monuments while spelunking of all things. I guess he felt the need to scratch that old intrepid explorer itch of his. It's pretty impressive considering his age. Now that I think about it, the obelisks could be linked to my own findings. Their nature has always been a mystery, and Rockwell made some intriguing observations. I should follow up. Though I've been received by the Iron Brotherhood, they didn't seem very pleased to see me, especially when I mentioned Rockwell. That's a first. Add that to the rather deserted, gloomy state of their compound, and I'm starting to feel a bit apprehensive. Their leader can't return from his hunting expedition soon enough. All I've confirmed so far is that, yes, they gathered all the artifacts Rockwell sought, and yes, the artifacts were able to activate one of the obelisks. You'd think they'd be celebrating such a monumental discovery, but it's just killjoys as far as the eye can see. Go figure. I keep glancing at the artifact. I understand why the Iron Brotherhood's leader didn't want it. Since it has no apparent use, all it does is remind him of the tribesman who died seizing it from that giant spider. Can it really be useless, though? They described the artifacts that activated the obelisk as looking similar to it, so I headed to the nearest obelisk to see if I could get a response. No luck. Maybe it activates something else. Of course! The platform in the cave! It's a long shot, but it's the only thing I can think of that's similar to the obelisks. Definitely worth a try. Unbelievable! The artifact fits perfectly in one of the slots in the platform's pedestal. How did I not notice that right away? I really am a tipstick. So if this key, such as it is, was acquired by activating one of the obelisks, then it follows that the other two keys can be attained by activating the other two obelisks. Then, with all three keys, maybe this platform will lead to whatever is controlling the island's ecosystem. If the other obelisks work the way that the first one did, that means I have to find a whole mess of artifacts first, and I don't think I can do that alone. Well, the Howling Wolves are quickly tracking down the artifacts, but after hearing about what happened to the Iron Brotherhood, that's as far as they'll go. It's understandable, but it leaves me in a tight spot. If a giant spider and I get into a scrap, the spider is winning for sure. Even with Athena on my side, I prefer to avoid danger, not confront it. My aim's piss poor and I've got fists like marshmallows. If I want a fair go at actually surviving whatever happens when the obelisk activates, I'll need backup. Negotiation notes. Don't mention feces. Don't look directly at the glare. Bring chili, unburned. Now, I know you don't get a nickname like Beast Queen without being one tough lady, but when I saw that giant ape, I still thought we were buggered. Fortunately, Mei-Yin's got more intestinal fortitude than yours truly, and somehow, some way, she was able to pull out a win. Glad I'm on her good side. I already found the second key, but I want to take a look around here before we head back through the portal. This ape either lived here or was released when we activated the obelisk. Finding out how it survived in this isolated environment or how it got here could prove useful. So these are the conquerors that I heard about way back when. Not a great first impression. Mei-Yin and I weren't quite mates, but watching her creatures get slaughtered like that certainly wasn't pleasant. I'm not a fan of the prisoner lifestyle either. The leader introduced himself as Gaius Marcellus Nerva, and he's not a complete bogan, I'll give him that. He let me keep my personal effects, and our conversations have been civil so far. I get the feeling that'll change if I don't cooperate, though. Not that I have much choice. They already took the keys. The only way I'm seeing this through is as a guest of the new Legion. This Nerva bloke's fig jam incarnate. He seems to think that he's Jupiter's gift to the island or some rubbish like that. I think his ego was actually tangible when the Legion returned from the obelisk with the third key and the head of a dragon in tow. Sadly, as much as I would enjoy seeing him fall flat on his face, I need him, and I need the new Legion. So, when he asked me to guide his forces to the hidden cave, I obliged without protest. What he'll do with me afterwards, I don't know. When Nerva and his band return from the cave, they'll decide my fate, so this may be my final chance to reflect. I may as well take advantage of it. I realized that if I had just ignored the signs and accepted this paradise at face value, I'd still be happy and free. Would that have been better? I don't think so. After a lot of thought, I've decided that I'd rather die seeking the truth than living in an illusion. That, as Rockwell would say, is the path of a true scientist. Not that I'm Galileo battling the church or anything, but hey, it's something to hold on to. Well, I'm not dead, and as it turns out, neither was Mei-Yin. In fact, it was her who freed me, and insisted we follow Nerva through the portal in the cave. A horrifying scene awaited us. All of Nerva's men lay dead amongst the shards of mysterious metal, but Nerva's body was missing. Forgetting my present company, I suggested a peaceful approach if we encountered him. That earned me one hell of a knockout punch. When I came to, I searched the whole station, but the only signs of Mei-Yin and Nerva were a few ounces of dried blood. No bodies, and no victor. There, floating outside the window and surrounded by machinery, was the very island that I had been living on. And it too was orbiting high above the earth along with countless other stations just like it. The ecosystem on the island wasn't just curated, it was completely artificial from the ground up. What in the hell is all this? Why would anyone construct it, and how could they have possibly kept it hidden from the world? I don't have the answers to any of these questions or the dozens of others that keep popping into my head. But somehow, I mean to find out. Somehow, I'll find the truth. I had to pick the desert. Why the hell did I pick the desert? Well, I suppose pick is a rather strong word for it. I'm still not entirely certain just how I got that console working, but it suddenly started cycling through holographic images of different destinations far from the island that I had been living on. Of course, I just had to go and press another button while it was showing off one that contained miles and miles of bloody desert. And here I am. That's just typical of me, isn't it? Always leaping, never looking. Oh well, better make the best of it. And by that, I mean better not die of heat exhaustion. My hunting skills are seriously out of practice. Not that I was ever spectacular, but I feel like I'd graduated from smashing bugs with a rock at some point. At least I was thoroughly rewarded for my efforts. My hunch was spot on that these big green bastards are carrying drinkable water on their backs, and thank goodness for that. I may have never known if I'd killed a red one first, since those carry oil instead. Far less useful when you're dying of thirst, let me tell you. I may be fighting the inevitable, though. I'm still on foot, and still alone. Definitely miss my Athena. I'm on a roll. By sheer coincidence, I stumbled into another group of survivors today, and they didn't try to kill me or anything. If I didn't know how probability actually worked, I'd say that this recent string of good luck is the universe making up for sending me to the bloody desert in the first place. The caravanners were welcoming, and the creatures they ride are fascinating. They seem like dinosaurs, but they also appear to share some biology with camels. Bizarre. For all its oddities, the island never had anything like that. I'll have to study them. After a nap. All this desert survival's left me knackered. If I had ended up in this place instead of on that island, I'd have never imagined the ecosystem was natural. Not for 2 seconds. Take these morellatops. They're a cross between a ceratops, a morellodon, and a camel. And the strangest part? There are places in its humps where you can stick a spigot and get clean drinking water. Tastes like piss, but not only is it safe, it doesn't even harm the morellatops. It's crackers. Definitely the result of genetic engineering, but I knew that, didn't I? It's time to get to the why. Maybe studying the creatures here with my new perspective will yield some insight. Today, I caught a glimpse of what the caravanners call the endless dunes. The desolate sea of sand that apparently surrounds the livable portion of the desert on all sides. Now, those dunes can't literally be endless, but it's easy to see why one would think that. Not only do they stretch onto the horizon, but they're home to, get this, giant sandworms that will devour anything that sets foot in their domain. I laughed that off at first. Then I saw a creature the size of a train burst up from the sand and devour a wild morellatops that had wandered into its territory. I suppose I'll just have to learn to walk without rhythm. As absurd as the deathworms are, I see their purpose. They're a natural barrier. If this whole place is a space station posing as a real ecosystem, then it needs to keep the wildlife and humans inside it contained in a way that appears natural. The island accomplished that by simply being an island, and the desert does it via the deathworms. Granted, a large population of predators with ludicrous kilocalorie needs would never last long in a place as devoid of prey, but as this is an artificial environment, the station can feed or replace the deathworms as needed. It's a little convoluted, but it makes sense. Time to go over the facts. Like the island, this desert is a space station posing as a natural environment. It is inhabited by a large population of dangerous, genetically engineered creatures, and a small population of humans that are struggling to survive. This whole environment is then deliberately contained by a combination of a holographic horizon and natural barriers. Assuming that the other space stations are at all similar, then this whole thing is starting to look like some kind of bizarre experiment on a grand scale. Yes, each station would represent an experimental group, and I'll have to continue this later. One of the caravan scouts just returned in a panic. Something about rocks being alive, which is of course ridiculous. I long for the days when I thought a Tyrannosaurus frolicking through the snow was the height of absurdity. Compared to yesterday, that seems commonplace. As the scout had so eloquently put, the rocks were indeed alive. Alive in the shape of a massive bipedal golem and exceedingly angry. I was too shocked to scatter like the others when it charged, and for a moment, I was certain that I would die. Then something even more ludicrous happened. Lightning crashed into the golem, but it didn't come from the sky. It came from the mouth of a bloody dragon. I don't recall much else. Fear and instinct pretty much took over for the rest of the day, and while that helped me survive, I'm once again on my own. I remember now that the dragon had a rider. Rather, the wyvern did. 2 legs means it's a wyvern. Struth, listen to me, fighting to survive and still finding time for semantics. The rider was covered up too well to get a good look at them. Could it have been Mei-Yin? No, that's stupid. I don't know if she's even alive, much less in this desert with me. It would be just like her, though, to have tamed the meanest thing here so quickly. It's nice to pretend that a friend might be looking out for me at least. We were sort of mates, right? Sort of. I could really use one right now. A friend, I mean. Well, I found a new best mate. The little fuzzball isn't exactly what I meant, but I'll take her. I've dubbed her species Rhinophylla amplexus. They're small, cuddly little herbivores, and as far as I can tell, taming one has no practical use. I just couldn't let her starve to death, though. I guess all this rubbish with golems and wyverns has quelched what was left of my scientific instinct to leave nature to nature. At least we provide each other with a little warmth at night, and her antics have helped me keep my spirits up. I suppose I'll need to give her a name. I may have been wrong about Rhinophylla not having a practical use. Earlier today, my furry new companion started bouncing around so excitedly that I couldn't calm her down, and then, soon enough, it started raining. I brushed that off as a coincidence, but soon after filling my water skins and setting off once more, she started acting skittish. I decided to find shelter just in case, and within minutes, light rainfall had turned into an electrical storm. I'll need more evidence to draw any firm conclusions, of course, but I wouldn't mind having a fuzzy little weather radar with me. You know, it's a little on the nose, but radar's not a bad name. Thank goodness that I decided to find some high ground 2 days ago, or I'd have never spotted this settlement. That's twice now that I've stumbled into my own salvation. I can't count on that happening again. I'll need to stay here for a while and prepare before setting out once more. Fortunately, the villagers are willing to let me trade work for supplies and shelter. Another stroke of luck, and another factor I can't rely on. On the island, Rockwell's name got me far, but here I'm just another stranger. Not everyone will trust or help me. I need to be prepared to survive on my own. In some ways, surviving on my own was less work. At least then I wasn't conscripted into manual labor. Ugh, my whole body feels sore. I bet I wouldn't have to work if I was as adorable as Radar. The whole village is in love with her. I swear they spoil her like a furry little princess. Rockwell would be livid about this arrangement. I can just hear him ranting about treating scholars with propriety. I hope the old Brit is doing well. Maybe when I've broken this mystery wide open, I'll figure out a way to get him off the island, and we can discuss it all over tea like old times. While my mind still can't recall the last time I fired a gun, my muscle memory is much better. According to my would-be instructor, I wasn't a complete disaster on the firing range. I'm no pacifist. Death and violence are a part of life. That's just nature. Yet, a gun still makes me a little uncomfortable. The idea of shooting at another human just seems instinctively wrong to me. I couldn't even fire at the new Legion back on the island. But I need to pull my weight. The villagers have been welcoming and patient with me. For their sakes, I need to practice. I may have to put my freshly polished marksmanship skills to test sooner than I thought. A hunting party spotted a swarm of giant mantises heading in our direction. Yes, giant mantises. I haven't spotted them with my own eyes, but the villagers have spoken of them every now and again. They say the insects have these little hands that can actually grip and wield weapons or tools. Sounds absolutely loony, but so is the idea of a mantis swarm at all. They must share Ghost Mantis' distaste for cannibalism. No one seems keen on fighting them, but they're too close to outrun. Hopefully they'll just pass us by. My hopes that the Mantises would ignore the village were unfounded, and I think we were all wondering if this morning's sunrise would be our last. Despite all my practice, my rifle felt heavy and foreign in my shaking hands as the swarm advanced. Fortunately, they weren't our only visitors. The villagers erupted in cheers as lightning and fire tore through the advancing insects from above. Some chanted a name, Wali Al-Aswad. The rider, still hidden behind black robes, didn't acknowledge the ovation. With swift efficiency, their small flight of wyverns decimated the mantis swarm and made for the horizon. Wali Al-Aswad. I need to meet this person, if only to thank them. Just who or what Wali Al-Aswad is depends on who you ask. Some of the villagers have attached a religious connotation to the figure, believing it to be some sort of heavenly guardian who appears to the worthy in their time of need. One villager is even convinced Wali is an extraterrestrial. I don't deal in beliefs. I deal in empirical evidence, and that means nothing about Wali is certain until I can meet them. I won't forget this village's kindness, especially after granting me a morellatops and supplies for my journey. But this is why I'm here, to find answers. I'm definitely more prepared for this desert than before, and better equipped. With my morellatops offering a large mobile supply of water and radar looking out for the weather, the only threat I really have to worry about is major predators. Also, giant golems. I'm actually impressed with the shape I'm in, if I do say so myself. I think I even saw some ab definition the other day. Took me long enough. I've been living without sweets for ages, after all. You'd think I'd get fit much quicker. Great, now I miss sweets. The things I'd do to taste chocolate again. It took weeks of searching, but I finally caught a glimpse of Wali Al-Aswad. I knew I was getting close when I found a series of fulgurite formations this morning, and sure enough, I spotted several wyverns later in the afternoon with a lone rider among them. The rider clearly saw me too, because soon enough the wyverns were circling overhead. I waved and yelled in greeting, even calling out Mei-Yin's name just in case. Yet, without so much as a nod, the wyverns regrouped and flew off. Wali's not a social butterfly, it seems, but I'm not letting them off the hook that easily. Of course Wali lives on a bloody mountain. Of course they do. I saw their wyverns land at the summit yesterday, and they haven't left. This has to be their home, unfortunately. The paths were too narrow for my morellatops, so I had to leave it behind. It should know to wander off if I don't return for it. Not that I can really afford to worry about it. The climb's doing a fine job of kicking my ass even without distractions. I swear, if I don't have a six-pack after climbing a mountain in the bloody desert, I'm going to be awfully cross. I don't know what kind of reception I expected when I reached the summit, but laughter wasn't one of them. Yet that was exactly what I heard when I finally let myself collapse and started flinging every obscenity that I could think of at this damned mountain. The bemused laughter of an old woman. Wali Al-Aswad is definitely no guardian angel. She was quick to dismiss those particular rumors with remarks about how the gods have abandoned this wretched place. As long as I avoided that subject, though, she's welcomed my questions with surprising warmth, though often enigmatically. I have a feeling that I'll need to be patient with her. It turns out that I didn't find Wali Al-Aswad. She found me. While the portal that I used to get here opened with little fanfare on my end, apparently the other side created quite the spectacle. According to Wali, it was easy for her to spot from atop her wyvern, and she started tailing me soon afterward. I guess her timely interventions were no coincidence. She didn't seem very surprised when I told her about the obelisks, their guardians, or even that this desert is actually a space station. Either she knows more than she's saying, or experience has grinded the surprise right out of her. I really missed flying. There's no replicating the feeling, and no replacement for seeing a sunrise amongst the clouds. Wali probably started these Wyvern Riding sessions just to give herself an escape hatch when our conversations get too personal, but I can't say I mind. Despite their appearance, riding Wyvern is just as pleasant as riding in Argentavis, even without a saddle. By design, perhaps? No matter. Genetically engineered or not, They are magnificent creatures. It's a risky proposition, but I absolutely must observe them in the wild sometime. I can't pass up an opportunity like that. Now that Wally has deemed my riding skills acceptable, she's finally agreed to show me around the region. From what I can gather, Wally has been here for a very long time, maybe longer than Rockwell was on the island. She knows the history of every village in ruin. Apparently there was once a great city to the southeast, but it was wiped out at some point. She's still mum on a lot of details, but I'll just have to keep prying. Radar's been helpful in that regard. Wally definitely seems to be in a better mood when the fuzzball's around. That little charmer's certainly earned her keep. I'm grateful that Wally allows me time to study the local wildlife, but I suspect she only does so out of amusement. She always says something like, "Why do you spend so much time on these scribbles that no one will read?" I never have a good retort. It's true that no one else may ever read my dossiers, as I have no way to reproduce or distribute them as long as I'm trapped on one of these space stations. When I started them, they were a passion project, created out of my love for nature and its creatures. Now, I guess they're just part of my identity. Writing them helps remind me who I am. I can't believe it! Wally spotted someone wandering the desert the other day, and it turned out to be none other than Edmund Rockwell. I just about burst into tears when I recognized him. Apparently, he heard that Nerva was holding me captive and sought to negotiate my release. That led him to the cave, and eventually he wound up here. Awfully sweet of him to go through all of that trouble for my sake. Strangely, Wally claims that she saw a portal open up far away from her territory shortly before mine did. I guess that was Rockwell's, though Wally arrived at the scene too late to track him. Rockwell theorized that the portals may have taken us through time as well as space. Considering my present company, I'm inclined to agree with him. Wally has been much quieter since we found Rockwell. I guess she's just letting us catch up. However, she did say something interesting when we were recounting Nerva's ambitions for the island. This place would never allow anyone to master it, she said. And when I asked her to explain, she told me that the great city to the southeast was destroyed by the obelisk itself. Now it's just conjecture, but it's interesting to think about. Could the curators of these stations be monitoring human behavior and clipping its wings should the survivors ever band together and fly too close to the sun? If each station represents a different group in a larger experiment, resetting human progress would make a lot of sense. It's a bit grim though, isn't it? Yikes. I don't think Rockwell's been sleeping much. I awoke last night to find him studying a strange piece of metal by firelight. I guess some tribe gave it to him as a gift, along with a very familiar-looking artifact. I insisted that we show these items to Wally, and she recognized them as the property of this station's lone guardian. With all that she knows, I'm not surprised that she's activated the obelisks before. Hell, it sounds like the old battle axe has even slain the beast herself. Since we have said guardian's artifact, Wally says that we can leave this station at any time. I suppose we may as well. Rockwell's eager to depart, and as much as I like Wally, I've had my fill of sand. The transporter that can take us back to the control center station is in the ruins of another city south of the mountains. Wally believes that it was destroyed by the obelisks, just like the city in the southeast. I didn't press her for details, not that I'd have gotten any. Wally's more tight-lipped about those ruins than anything. I had to practically beg her to take me to the southeastern city, and while we were there, she spent most of her time just gazing out into the distance. No sense in bringing her mood down with that rubbish now. After all that she's done for me, I'd like to give her a nice, proper farewell. Having seen us through the ruins and safely to the platform, Wally has taken her leave. After doing so much for me, I was sad to see her go, but at least I got her to smile before she left. Well, me and Radar. I can't very well take the little critter with me, so I officially gave Wally ownership of her. They'll be good for each other, I think. Gah, I wrote Wally up there twice. I suppose old habits die hard, but it's not really her name, is it? I always knew that was the case, but she's never told me to call her anything else. At least, not until now. Well, at any rate, cheers, Raia. It was a pleasure to have known you.